Very good. Well, everyone, I'm Jarrett Appleby. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for CoreSite, and appreciate you coming by today. It's a pretty interesting conference here. I've been working with the RightScale folks for about 3 years, and got to watch the company evolve. Pretty exciting space everyone's in. I'm an old guy, so I've been in the industry 29 years. I had an interesting opportunity this year, really seeing RightScale in motion. We fortunately, as in the industry, get to go to industry events over the years. And this year in December, I had 1 week at AWS reInvent. How many of you were at AWS reInvent this year? That's kind of the DevOps world, where the world's going. The following week, Gartner was in the exact same conference room. How many of you were at Gartner IT infrastructure show? Just a few folks. This is exactly what's happening to the world that we're living in, and RightScale is a key enabler in that. I want to talk about the role of data centers in this world, but it's the collision of the traditional IT world and the cloud world coming together. I've been old enough in this industry to see internet revolution start out at the CLEC world. This is probably the most exciting IT architecture shift that we've seen out there. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the enablers that we're seeing from the infrastructure layer out. How many of you saw the Samsung presentation today? So we're going to talk a little bit about that and some of the things that we're seeing. I've done about 35 to 40 workshops and executive briefings on some of the collateral materials. We're fortunate being inside the data center business. I've been doing the data center side and the networking side for about 29 years. And by putting the data center in the middle, you get to really see some interesting architectures. You get to see folks like Amazon evolve their business with AWS from the inside out. You get to see Microsoft redesign your architecture. You get to see megatrends around IP traffic and the private, public, multi-cloud from the inside out. You get to see the devices that come in. I think Richard talked about enabling 200 million devices at the edge coming in. You get to see the amount of data center spend and the legacy. Half the data centers are over 25 years old for enterprises, and they need more power density to support the architecture, and they need new ways of doing networking. And then at the end of the day, you get to see a lot of spend and you get to see a lot of innovation. And at the center of it, great quote from Ian Brown, the center of it is a data center. This is the point. You don't see the pictures of in an event like this where all the development and all the innovation that's gone out there and what the cloud service is, but where it lives is in these data centers. And not all data centers are created equal, and I want to talk a little bit about it, some of the implications that we see, and some of the innovation you can enable from the networking side and from the compute side. So the drivers that we're seeing, we all talk about the big data trends. That data doesn't want to be moved. It's analyzed frequently. So there's different values of this data. And the data that's being created every day, there's high performance-oriented analytical data that you want to have nearby, you want to have that's needed for performance. The network and mobility are growing, which is pushing things out to the edge, and you can't solve latency. And that's probably one of the things I'm starting to see in events like this. The network is like oxygen for the cloud. And we take that for granted, the choice of IP, the choice of private networking solution, the innovation that's gone on in Ethernet standards, for example. So we tend to focus on the IP growth, but there's a lot of innovation and requirements on the networking side. And I want to spend a little bit of time on that around high performance and the implications of network and latency on workloads. All workloads are not the same. 3 out of 5 data center workloads will be in the cloud, but where's that cloud live? And I'm going to talk about multi-tiered architecture and what folks are seeing on the innovation side to bring the high-performance applications to the edge and take the non-performance anything and put it in the hinterlands where power is cheap and your costs are down. And that's an architectural shift, and that's a distributed environment. And at the heart of it is data center networking or cloud networking. And I want to talk a little bit because I think SDN is starting to really innovate and revolutionize how people think of data center networking and cloud. But it is putting the WAN at the center of your architecture in a data center. And it's about putting a lot of your high-performance clouds next to it. And so these are the mega trends that we're seeing. There's some great data out there from the leading analysts. In the old world, you thought of power-based data centers. It's power, it's cheap. What we're really seeing, and we call it the mesh, but it's where that fabric, where the environment comes together, where interconnection happens. And there's communities that have grown up. And I was fortunate to live through the internet generation. The internet companies had to come together and create a hubbing model, had to agree where they were going to interconnect. And it was for the benefit of the entire internet community to go and interconnect in these data centers to allow the internet to scale so everyone won. The same thing is happening with cloud and private networking. We need to come together as a community to bring the clouds together, to give multi-cloud and choice, to simplify that, to allow the whole community to benefit, and to migrate from that Gartner IT world to a new world of cloud and innovation. And so at the center of it, data centers are really at the center of the architecture. Data center architectures, really, there's performance-sensitive applications and workloads. I've gotten an opportunity to sit down with clients to say, what needs to be at the edge and what can be remote? And so when you start seeing this, and I think some of the use cases you're starting to see, at the edge you need these network nodes. Smaller deployments, highly distributed globally. There might be 40 or 50 markets that really matter globally. North America, it's probably 15 markets. You got to be within certain latency parameters at the edge for the network to perform well for your clients, for your customers, and your employees. There's more and more aggregation nodes. These need to be closer in the edge. In the old world, the cloud, you could open one data center in all North America and try to serve the world through best effort internet. What's happening is folks are distributing, pushing that more to the edge, and smaller deployments at the edge versus these back office server farms that you'd see where big data is. And so what we're seeing in terms of best practices is people really think of a data center architecture that's multi-tiered, putting the performance applications at the edge. We're working continually to get better data in terms of what workloads need to be at the edge and in these compute farms, these aggregation nodes, and what can be moved. But more and more is being pushed at the edge as cloud becomes more mainstream. When you have dev environments, you don't need the same kind of performance. When you're moving to production environment, you're counting on the same kind of performance closer to legacy applications. So we're seeing these kind of architectures evolve. And we're also seeing an evolution of the old and new world. How many of you read the book Tubes by Andrew Bloom? Really a fascinating book. I've gotten to talk to him numerous times on panels. That world, that convergence that you really see of legacy world, telco hotels, places like our One Wilshire facility. It's the largest interconnection hotel on the West Coast. We happen to run the Meet Me Room and 13 floors. More networks than anywhere else on the West Coast. It's the gateway to Asia. Guess what? It can't support cloud compute. It doesn't have the power density and all, but it has the network. What we're seeing is folks like us tether to a virtual campus 12 blocks away, a huge facility that can support 20 to 25 kilowatts per cab kind of deployments. The cloud, the digital content world. Merging those two things in a virtual campus is where things are evolving. And we're seeing these become hubs for the legacy network world and the compute world where you're looking for high performance applications at the edge. And increasingly, people are not relying on best efforts internet performance. It's Ethernet on-ramps. It's private networking, MPLS, private IP, on-ramps to these cloud providers that are high performance. And so we're really seeing this evolve. This is all foundational for the software-defined networks and the standards that MEF CE 2.0. That is a big driver for the automation and for standardization of those kinds of services to create on-ramps to these campuses. And what's happening on these campuses is essentially cross connects, 10 gig at a time overnight. And so we'll talk about a couple of use cases of how, if you put these types of solutions in your architecture, how it can really evolve the kinds of services that you can roll out. The implications we've been hearing about all day, but the one I really want to drive home, I think there's a whole total cost of ownership, and I want to talk a little bit about cloud. For example, one of the things that you do is AWS reInvent. I can't tell you how many folks go in and plug into a public cloud environment. Next thing you know, they're spending $1 million a month. And they go, oh, it was easy. Suddenly I got a spending problem. So how do I get that under the control? How do I take kind of my private cloud and leverage a data center environment, co-location, or basic assets, and get a standard cost that I can control and make sure I have performance and security in my own environment, and cloud burst and leverage multiple cloud providers for others? How do I get the scalability to grow? I can't tell you any clients, we talk about this all the time. If I move to this new world, what does it mean in terms of power densities in my existing environment, my data center? I got to invest more in data centers? That's not my core business. So the scalability of these campuses to allow you to support and let you flex up and grow in scale near the major hubs is really critical. Third is around security. I can't tell you how many folks don't want to go over public internet. Got to see a lot of this over the last 5 years with the financial community. There's no way they're going to use public internet. That's why AWS moved a deployment in New York City with us. You can directly connect to them in New York. And you're going to see more and more of that private networking, direct connect, cross connect type offering, but now through private networks, not just through public internet. And then performance is really the theme. And I want to talk about, particularly I'm going to close with a little bit more about the Samsung deployment and what we're seeing what that means. And this is at the heart of it. And folks are really starting to understand what data center networking solutions are going to evolve. And we're on this journey now. Being an old network guy, coming in and feeding that into the cloud really matters. So you start out, I'm a mobile app. I love Salesforce.com. I'm on a mobile device. Performance sucks. You know, you just can't get that in my office because you got public internet. The solutions you start moving, like an AWS, a direct connect offering, that really gives me the security and the performance I need, and I can scale down. The only thing it isn't everywhere I need it. It's too far away from me. So we're seeing innovators really layer in the direct connect capability and layer 2 connectivity into it. We're seeing new solutions. The innovation that went in the application delivery network side, you know, the Riverbeds, the Akamais of the world that can accelerate performance over optimized internet access are going to be key drivers and innovation for on-ramps to the cloud. And at the end of the day, you know what? I have my wide area network. How do I take that world and converge it to the cloud world? And we're seeing innovators come out who are leveraging exchange infrastructure and innovating in the software side, initially for MPLS and Ethernet on-ramps, but that will evolve to SDN. All this means is, you know what? I want to get it anywhere, anytime I want it, and I want it to scale for me. And what they're finding out is rather than bringing that last mile to my site, what if I take my critical applications and hub them in a data center campus? And the innovators around the digital content and the cloud world are doing it. How do we teach enterprises and other high-performance verticals like healthcare and financial services how to do that? And the innovators are doing it. Folks like Samsung's of the world have figured it out. And I think the benchmark for high-performance apps, the gauntlet's kind of been laid down, less than a millisecond. You can do different things with different kind of performance, but it really limits the geography and options if you want to get that kind of performance and security. So great innovation. We're early on this cycle of innovation. But the network is going to play a major role in this. And I think there's a lot going on in the software-defined networking space that's really going to drive it. And again, much like the internet world drove a lot of applications there. So I want to give you an example of this. We launched the Open Cloud Exchange. And our idea was much like we want to provide choice. We want to provide on-ramps to the cloud. And we looked around at the time, who were some of the leading guys? These aren't only the only puzzle pieces you can pull together, but these are some of the best-of-breed folks that we thought were solving for this and creating an environment where you could bring the cloud and networking communities together and, frankly, scale the cloud. Create an environment where you could truly scale the cloud. And we think performance matters. If you're willing to do a consumer cloud in remote areas, you can solve that a lot of different ways. But if you're going to focus on high performance, hybrid, and multi-clouds, we think there's a few architectural things that you need to think about it. And again, another great quote, data center is the heart of cloud computing. We don't show a lot of those data center pictures and where that's happening and where the multi-clouds live, but it's a place where the internet lives. These are places where private network growing, and this is a place where cloud infrastructure as a service and SaaS offerings aggregate up and create aggregation nodes. One of the innovations that comes along on it sometimes is a next generation upgrade. And what's pretty interesting is, particularly in the private networking space, there's an investment going from the network community from 10 gig to 100 gig. And it's driven to support cloud networking. That investment is going in with the major carriers. And where are they putting it? They're putting it at places where they can sell capacity. And there's a lot of demand in these data center campuses to go do that. So not only are you having that, you're having a technology refresh coming at it from the network side. And we invited a lot of network folks here because this world has got to come together with the network to scale it and to provide that innovation. And the network guys are bringing in the 100 gig core upgrades right now. And you want to have that to give access to the cloud guys. So Samsung had a different view of reference architecture, but a lot of the elements were here. This is just something we kind of build up as we're talking about our building blocks and how you could potentially look at reference architectures to enable the cloud. And it starts with what our view is these data center campuses. Networks can't upgrade 100 gig core routers everywhere. They have to pick where they're making those big investments. And they're increasingly moving it out of a legacy telco hotel in New York and looking at places like Secaucus, New Jersey. Huge investment. Where are the subsea cables coming in that are global? They're increasingly moving from downtown New York to places where cheaper power and scale in the community lives, in places like Secaucus. So these campuses not only are bringing the networks, but they're bringing the cloud. These aggregation nodes are increasingly, and I'll show you where AWS is deployed today and those type offerings as a case example. And then what we see, and I'll go through this in detail, is how do we make it easy to take advantage of this reference architecture? And the Samsung deployment, I'm going to walk through in a second, uses much of these components. But it starts with, how do I take my legacy workloads and port them to the cloud? How do I make it easy to onboard in any hypervisor, it'd be hypervisor agnostic, to get it to the cloud? Then how do I then manage it when I get it there? And in innovators like we're here today. There's a lot of choice at the orchestration layer. So let that play out. And that's great for customers. They can adapt and innovate at the cloud orchestration layer. And then how do I take advantage of, build my own private cloud, take advantage of service provider clouds? How do I take advantage of public cloud? What are those environments? Where do they live? And how can I connect to those? And then finally, what kind of IT building blocks can I buy by the drink? Innovation like cloud storage, security offerings, things that also happen to live on the same campuses. So this is a reference architecture I'm just going to use as an example and something we've talked to folks about. And again, these are just examples of some clients. So first is River Meadow, a SaaS tool, hypervisor agnostic. They have deals with leading folks out there. They do a nice job of cloud onboarding early days. They have a product called nCloud. And basically, it's an automated cloud onboarding solution for moving legacy environments to the cloud. And what they're looking to do is they work with file in memory, really that flash memory kind of capability to allow you to do that really quickly. They're just one example. There's a lot of innovation on the software side, but the more we can take legacy environments and port them over, great for the cloud business and all of us here. Second example, we're living it. So we've been watching these groups evolve, taking workloads and templatizing it. We're really excited, working with RightScale. We'll give you a use case at the end of this, but really doing the automation, all the management that you're seeing here. But again, these kind of tools allow you to do, hybrid and multi-cloud management. Third, Amazon really is innovating from a direct connect model, allowing networks to connect to them. I think there's a great opportunity for folks to also bring in and turnkey some of the innovation around SDN and private network in their cloud environments, public or service provider cloud environments. But I'll go a layer deeper here with publicly, they're in 4 sites right now that you can directly connect to Amazon. You can see them as they evolve. They're moving closer to the edge. This happens to be the 4 locations where you can directly connect to them. We have 2 of them, Los Angeles and New York. And next to this is an opportunity for service providers to support hybrid cloud or multiple cloud providers. And you can access these. And the performance started out 10 milliseconds, and I heard 5, and increasingly we're hearing 1 millisecond kind of performance to be able to win a solution. So this is going to continue, and I think this is just one example on the lower level that you're going to see the Azures and others have to evolve closer to the edge, closer to the clients in a secure environment and support direct connect. And again, this all benefits all of us as we scale the cloud. On the top is a product that we launched. We call it the Open Cloud Exchange, and this one is essentially allowing on-ramps and virtual cross-connects to the cloud. And so the world of cloud is, if I'm in the center, I can access you through a cross-connect. Now I can take the Ethernet lit building infrastructure and directly connect. So guys like Time Warner Telecom are building out. They have 17,000 lit buildings. How do I make those as on-ramps to the cloud? And a lot of other service providers. There's a lot of work being done on your networking side of your business. Many of the customers are here. You're participating in the standards that are being created by the MEF group, the Metro Ethernet Forum. Those are key standard drivers, much like the internet. They're going to allow us to use Ethernet increasingly as on-ramps to the cloud, to your offerings. And more the cloud service providers are supporting layer 2 and ultimately private IP solutions. So this cloud exchange is really to facilitate on-ramps to the cloud and allow you to come into these campuses directly. Next one, I'll use CSC as an example. Maybe not the biggest innovator of the world, they're quietly changing their business. And I shared this use case at Gartner. This is kind of the legacy. CSC is known by the more traditional IT world, that Gartner group that I talked about. But what they've essentially done is created their shared environment supporting their clients that they can build up these instances. They happen to be in 3 markets with us. And what they wanted to do is look for a service provider where they could sell their services. Make sure they have the services from a security, from a consistency. Compliance is huge. HIPAA, you go start calling it FISMA, medium, FISMA, high. You're seeing it, all the PCI compliance. All those kind of things in a data center environment, compliance is huge. And so these campuses are really critical, but the key driver you're going to hear here time and time again is high performance network availability. It is oxygen for these providers, and that's why CSC Trusted Cloud Services is deployed with us in multiple markets, and they're supporting private, public, hybrid cloud. They're quietly evolving their model. System integrators can be our best friends in the MSP, because if the traditional enterprises and IT environments don't have the skills to do it themselves, they can help in this hybrid world, and they can manage a client through it if they don't have the skills themselves. So a key building block for the community, the ecosystem, and to support the scaling of the cloud. And the other is choice. As a consumer, I love choice. It's a great thing. Competition is great for all of us. One cloud isn't going to rule the world necessarily. So having choice in different and taking control of your supply contracts. And nothing wrong with it. Someone that can swipe a card and a year later spending $1 million a month, you've kind of lost control. And so how do you take it back? You want multiple cloud providers. You need the tools and the capabilities. There's a lot of innovation going on. How many of you were at OpenStack last week up in a handful? Yeah, a lot. I heard amazing things there, community, great participation, a lot of innovation coming there, also on the cloud stack side, across the board. But again, that choice, those options give you and allows you to take control of what you want, manage your own orchestration layer, manage your own suppliers. You need a toolkit to go do that. And that's where RightScale can come in often, and we're very excited. Our first major public deal that we were able to announce was Samsung. And they talked earlier today about very similar. If you look at their reference architecture slide and what they looked at, much more precise, much more technical. Yeah, I'm giving a high layer. But if you peel the onion on what they're really doing in there, it is that private public cloud. It's that high performance OpenStack environment where they had the skill and they built that environment out. It's AWS public cloud that they're leveraging that's a millisecond away. It gives them the scalability. They're creating availability zones. Think about what they're talking about. Their availability zones are starting regionally, but again, it'll be pushed closer to the edge as you get more users and performance matters. What are the types of solutions that you're going to have to go after? And then the optimization, the load balancing, and all that selection. But if you also talk about what the future for them, it's SDN. If you looked at the SDN offering and the networking component and the innovation that's gone on there, that is embracing this evolution of performance matters and the kind of private networking and what SDN will bring is the promise. And that's the challenge for us, is bringing that world together with our compute world that we're talking here in the development side. So we've used this, again, 35, 40 executive sessions and all, framed it out. It works, as you think through the environment, because it really starts with your reference architecture. My one commercial slide, if I could. The reason we're in 9 markets and we're supporting the community, we think we have a unique opportunity to bring the cloud and networking communities. We build out the environment leveraging the legacy world of a One Wilshire Telco hotel into usually a 20 or 30 megawatt powered facility nearby, all tethered in, virtual cross connect. You can connect to anyone on the campus. So there's the power of this community. I can connect, a lot of flexibility in these campuses of who I want to leverage on the network or cloud side or partner side. You're seeing it push to the edge. We happen to be in 9 markets today. So you're seeing this kind of scalability and support. But what's really compelling about this is we have 275 networks to choose from across our platform. So you get the leverage, you get the WAN environment, you get choice on the internet, private networking, and increasingly on the international cable systems that are being. And again, that merges, that gives oxygen to the cloud. And then we call it the mesh. And whatever you call the community, it's about all of us. And again, I go back to the early days of UNet and my MCI days. I joined MCI when we were competing with AT&T. It was a lot of fun. The CLEC world was kind of my first generation transformation. I got to see. I was a young buck then. Then got to run with the UNet guys. And the innovation and architectural shift, the types of services, basic dial-up, and then the evolution of that, and really how the internet changed compute. And I think we're right at that point now where the network innovation and the software-defined networks and these private networking solutions in the cloud coming give you performance. And so we talk about 4 key things that you really want to think about as you go. Pick a place you're going to be able to scale. The worst thing you can do is pick a home for your data or pick a home for your cloud, and you're always constrained. The second thing, where are you going to pick a home? Are you going to pick a home in rural, middle of North Carolina hills? Okay, maybe if you're retired. Or do you want to be where vibrant connectivity solutions are? Are you going to be on the highway? Are you going to be right at it? And are you going to be where you need to get to the internet? Where are you going to get private networking solutions? And when you pick a home, do you want to be in a community? And I think a lot of us, I pick neighborhoods. I moved a lot over the years. You pick a neighborhood that I'm going to grow up, my kids are going to grow up, my family, my partners are going to be, and you're going to build relationships there. And that is the next piece. It is about community. And it's been exciting the last probably 10, 12 years that I've got to see the communities really grow. And it really started with the internet community. When you saw the internet grow up and how they scaled, that's the maturity model I think we're going to see for the cloud and networking guys. It's about cloud and networking community. And then it's about customer experience. I'm honored to be in CoreSite now almost a year. It's a culture of simple, honest, and strong, and trusting people and working with customers that you work with. And I think we need to be simple, honest, and strong as a community with each other of what works. We all have our angles. But you know what? If we make it easy for customers to move, this is going to be the most exciting 10 years in my career and a lot of us. If we make it hard for customers and painful to go through this and don't give them the tools to do it, we're going to miss out on a tremendous opportunity. And so, I love the RightScale compute model because I think that innovation and the drive that we have here, I do think some folks are missing from our community. And we're vocal and we're working with them because I think it is bringing this community together and the development, the IT, legacy IT world, and then the network guys. I think that's at the heart of really the success of us is making it easy to connect and more options there. So in summary, I'm a big proponent. I think there are data centers on the grid. Where are you going to put your WAN? How are you going to do it securely? Network performance matters. Think about your architecture for the network in the long term. Where's this hybrid multi-cloud going to live? This is a standard. You hear it all the time. The data is really backing up. We're still in the early days. We think data center campuses have a big role rather than individual islands that are subscale because that's where the community can meet. It's big enough. And then the third is embracing IT specialty and managed service and system integrators. I think they have a next generation. That old outsourcing model that the SIs and MSP has really evolved, they got to come in and help enterprises. There might be 10, 20% of enterprises that can do it themselves. Move to this private public cloud. And if we can get the SIs and MSPs in this world, they can really help us scale. And it's good to see them really participating actively here, building their own cloud services, competing, but more importantly, providing those skills to support that complexity. So I know it's a non-traditional presentation, maybe from some of the others that you guys have seen today, but I wanted to open up for questions. I love debate or comments or thoughts that you guys might have. If no one asks, I'm going to pick on a few folks, maybe. No, I'm kidding.
Do you want me to hold it? So in the previous session, there was a question asked about how you transfer large amount of data. And he was a speaker, but he did not answer, and someone else tried to answer after the session, right? So in this world you described, right, mesh and interconnect and direct connect, how that large amount, meaning 1 terabyte or more, get resolved, get transferred in an efficient and faster way.
Well, I think the innovation, I'll use the River Meadow example. You still need connectivity. The question is, how do I take my legacy environment? There's innovators. There's an element of it, like the service. Violent memory can do a lot with the flash memory and the speed type aspect. But at the end of the day, you still got a limited pipe that you're moving from one data center to another that you got to go through. So the terabit traffic. The 100 gig type investments that networks are starting to make are going to provide a lot more throughput and capacity to start migrating that type of legacy workloads over. But it's still early days. That's a lot of the innovation that we're starting to see is who's going to solve that, what kinds of problems can you solve. There's optimization techniques that you can use as well. But at the end of the day, it's still a heavy world to migrate a legacy environment. And it's to us, we're seeing more innovation, and we'll talk later on a panel. It's smaller pieces. Pick something that you can digest and get started. And I think that's what most folks are doing before they do full production environments in the mainstream. And I'm not sure if there's a specific example that you're talking to that you want to cover.
Not in my case, but I'm aware of certain cases. So I guess maybe the question is, there's a company represented by like Aspire or similar, right? So they're trying to solve those kind of problems. Have you guys worked with those kind of companies?
No, I mean, we're at the infrastructure layer. Right. What we're saying is we love the innovation up the stack for all of us. We're just trying to create an environment, a fertile environment to support the cloud and the networking components. The innovation is coming at the software layer. So all those examples are going to make things happen quicker. And again, you just watch what RightScale's done the last few years as they've evolved and templatized and added additional suppliers that you can choose from. That innovation's happening at the software layer. So it's good. Other questions? Anyone else? Going once? Okay. Well, I appreciate you listening and appreciate the time today. Thank you. Take care.